All right, class. All eyes on me. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we have just talked about commensalism, parasitism, and mutualism. Talking amongst our pets. We talked about how those three things kind of make up all the relationships in the animal kingdom. There are two very important terms that I need you to know. The first term is called predation. Now, can someone tell me what a predator is? Not the kind of person. An animal. What's an animal predator? Okay, thank you. A predator hunts and kills an animal. And it might have a predator itself. It might be the top of predator. We call that the apex predator. You all know Apex. Apex Legends, the video game, popular amongst all the children. The apex predator has no predator. He's at the top of the food chain. We, for example, could be considered apex predators. We don't have a predator. We're the top. Every predator has a prey, something that it eats. This is not a type of relationship. This is just them eating something, killing and eating it for food. The second and very important term. So with the first one, we have predation, being a predator. The second one is called competition. You all love competition. Can someone explain to me competition in your own words? Great, thank you. I appreciate that definition. We're going to run with it. So, competition between two things might be equally powerful. They're competing towards the same, what did he say? Same goal. Yes, we have two soccer teams competing for the goal of winning the game or winning the championship, whatever the case may be. They are trying to win. Those two teams are competing. It's the same in the animal kingdom. You have one animal and another animal, and one species and another species competing for the same food source. There's a limited amount of food. Just like in a soccer game, there's a limited amount of time. Whoever scores the most goals wins. In the animal kingdom, the species that eats the most lives. They're the ones that are running amok, eating all the food, driving out the competition. There is a finite. Anyone know what finite is? Anyone know what infinite means? Infinite. Opposite of infinite is finite. Means that it will have an end. There is a finite number of resources in the world. And we know this. We see this all the time. Limited number of resources. Things just don't pop up. And when you have two species competing for the same food source, eventually that food source might run out. Or the one species might not get enough food. They don't reproduce because they can't have babies because they are not eating. Because the other species, they're eating all the food. All the nutrients, all the resources are going to them. The other is not. And what happens to them? What can you infer happens to this other group of animals, or this other species of animal that wants to eat the same thing as the other species, but they're not getting any? What's going to happen to them eventually? Any guesses? Any at all? Yes, they are going to die and become maybe extinct. We don't know. Depends on the species and depends on if they're endangered or not, but that's neither here nor there. Those are the two important terms. We talked about mutualism, which is it pluses and pluses, pluses and minuses, pluses and zeros? What is it on the board? Pluses and pluses. Talked about commensalism, and what is that? A plus and a zero. And we talked about parasitism, and what is that? A plus and a minus. Predation. Who can tell me and remind the class what that means? What is a predator? Yes. Something that hunts something else and kills it and eats it, captures it maybe. And what is competition? Competing for the same food source maybe, same space. We talk a lot about the ecosystem. We talk a lot about what's out there. The ecosystem also is a finite space. There could be animals competing for the same space. And what happens when you kick another group and kick somebody else out of their home? Where do they go? Do they die? Do they find somewhere else to live? What happens to them? What do you think happens to them? Yes. What do you think happens? Okay, we'll run with it. What do you think happens to them? They could find somewhere else to live. And what do they have to do? They need to kick somebody else out of that home also. The animal kingdom, the ecosystem, is meant to facilitate competition, and survival of the fittest wins. Survival of the fittest. Now, we break this down. Survival of the fittest. What do you guys think that means in a nutshell, based on everything we talked about? What does survival of the fittest mean to you in your own words? Okay. Thank you. Yes, survival of the fittest. Meaning that the people or the animals most fit to survive in that ecosystem or in that environment will survive. They are the fittest. And what happens to the rest? They all die. Charles Darwin, who we talked about, in other classes. Charles Darwin, the father of he talked about adaptation, talked about evolution, all that good stuff that we've talked about before. If we remember, he also talked about survival of the fittest. The animals that are fit to survive will survive. And those are the ones that pass down all these things to future species of animals as they evolve, as they change, as they get better, as they always get better almost. That's what we always seem to see, that they get better, they become more fit for their environment so that they do survive. Okay, I threw a lot of words at you. I threw a lot of definitions. Is there anybody that is confused about any of these definitions on the board? It's okay if you need me to come up with more examples or you need me to explain them again. That's fine. Or if you don't feel comfortable asking me, ask one of your neighbors. Or if you don't like writing down definitions, draw something that'll help you remember. Draw an animal eating another animal. He's a predator. Predation. Draw two animals. Draw a heart around them. That's mutualism. Use your imagination. Write down whatever you think will help you remember these vocab words. Perfect. Thank you.